Our next presenter, I've known for a long time. A very long time. But she's going to talk to you about judges, training, and what it takes to be a judge. So please help me welcome Delores Myles.
Is that the speech contest has been a part of a long tradition of Toastmasters International. It has done a lot. It means that there are people who try to move to the top of the ladder, you might say, because this kind of competition that Toastmasters has evolved starts at the club level and moves up through the area, division, following division. There used to be regional, but now we just have semifinals, and of course, the top level Toastmasters International Conference, which is held every August. Now, there are certain reasons why Toastmaster has done this. There are 3 objectives, and I don't have that in front of me right now, but you're going to get a folder that will tell you about the 3 objectives that the speech contest does deliver to the international membership. So that's taken care of now. The thing that you get involved in this particular, or in my particular presentation, which immediately has flown away from my mind, so you'll have to deal with that. You'll have to deal with me. And whatever your opinion is, I don't care. You are not in this all by yourself. You have a whole lot of information for yourself in that rule book that has been provided. However, getting back to the point, you are not, as a judge, you're working as a judge, you are not alone in this particular situation. You have everybody else to help you out, or you are a part of a team. You have first a chairman, and I'll define that privately. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't have time to go through those steps. You have the chairman, you have the Toastmaster, you have the counters, you have the the timers and the ballot counters. You have yourself as a judge. And who else do you have? You have the chief judge, you have the tie-breaking judge. All of those people make up the team to produce a speech contest. Now, you as a judge, where do you sit in this position? First of all, you picture yourself in a chair. On one side, you have the people who are on the team. On the other side, you have what a judge needs. And what a judge needs is to be fair-minded, to be accurate, to be knowledgeable, and a few other characteristics. But that sets the tone right there, using those particular adjectives. So what else do you have? You have a situation of your feelings about what's going to come about. You don't want to be a person who ignores these particular barriers. I'm going to talk about or give you these barriers. You don't have to write them down. Pay attention to me. You'll get them in the folder. But if you were completely objective, we wouldn't need a team of judges. Not at all. Because that one person who is objective can deal with each speaker objectively. No biases, nothing to hold them back. But that can't happen because that's why we have a panel of judges. This is an instance, this is a situation where you have a group of people who come from all different areas with their own ideas that they might be able to throw away except for one. But that one can be balanced and neutralized by somebody over there who does not have that same bias. So, I have a list here of barriers to objectivity, and I'll just kind of skim through them. I don't want to take up too much time with that because we've got a lot more and I've got a lot less time. Okay? One of them is second time around. Judge the speech as if you heard it for the first time. For instance, I went to that area contest last Thursday. 2 weeks later, I went to the division contest and heard that speech again. My idea, area, pretty good. Division, better. Over. Area, pretty good. Division level, golly. That wasn't very good. Influenced by the second time around. Let's help the underdog. My goodness, is he going to speak again? I watched him for 5 years in contests, trying to be a winner. Well, what is it? Are you going to vote for him this time? Let's go for the underdog. Give him some satisfaction at last. Or, I'm not going to be bothered with this person as far as the underdog situation is concerned. You decide what happens there. It happens in reality. It happens in reality. Don't let that be your barrier. Give somebody else a chance. Very close to what I just said. Here's a person who shows up every meeting, every contest. Very arrogant. I'm going to do this. Wake up over there. I'm going to do this. And you think that he's going to win again or she's going to win again? Sure, good speech all the time. Good speech all the time. But I'm just going to have to go with that person because that was the best speech. Maybe it wasn't. Just maybe it wasn't. And the other judges around you mentally don't think that way. And so that person that you thought was so good and you were sure that your opinion would hold up, it didn't hold up. In other words, you cannot keep on using that as a part of your judging psyche. Club norms can enter into something like this. If the individual does something that your club does all the time, you go for it. Or you don't go for it. Don't let club norms, don't let somebody else's culture interfere with your decision. The first speaker or the last speaker is the best speaker. Well, what do you say to that? What do you think would happen? I'm not going to define that, but we do have an example of an individual who was the first speaker at the international contest, right here in this room. I'll go on. Prejudice and personal preference, the halo effect, and unfamiliar judgment forms. All right, if you want me to say something about any of those, just raise your hand. I might tell you, but it's in the folder that you're going to get. Unfamiliar judging forms, that's going to be real good too. I think that many people who judge in this district do not take real advantage of what is on that guide that you're using in order to judge. You have to be aware of the fact that that information that is in such a small space on the front of your paper is magnified so many times more on the reverse of that same guide. I don't think any of you would be embarrassed if I asked you, do you know about that? Do you understand what is being looked for or what is being set up as a guide for you to make a decision? You have that on the rear, on the reverse of your ballot. well, I shouldn't say ballot at this point, it's the guide. The ballot is at the bottom. And at the bottom, there is the ballot. And that ballot can be misaligned many times by certain people. You have to sign it, and you have to print your name for a good reason. And if you don't do that, your ballot is nothing. It goes into the trash. I had a situation once in a training session in which the signature was a problem on this particular ballot. And one person said, I can't read this name. And another judge said, well, I'm having the same problem with this. We had gone through all of them. This was the last one. And that could have been ascertained very easily. You know, if this is the last judge, you can't read the name, but you've read all the other names, you can go ahead and figure out who that name belonged to and use that ballot. However, it was as the question was asked, what do I do with this? I can't read this name. And so the response was, well, if you can't read the name, then you have to discard it. And another individual said, well, if I were there and if you were the chief judge, I would never want to be a chief, I would never want to judge under you again, assuming that there was not another way to ascertain the name. Point is, make sure you understand every single point on your guide and on the ballot specifically. You don't have to pay attention to what's on that form. It's only a guide. You might have another system waiting for you, or you might have 2 other systems that you may use. I don't know what they are, but you know how you conduct your life. You know how you set up your goals. So you may use another guide in order to fill out that ballot. That's all right. It is not a law in Toastmasters International to use the guide that they give you. But the guide is a powerful tool for you to use. Are there any questions so far? What's my time? Oh, I got some time.
Oh, yes.
My husband has a very good thing for me. I ask for my time. Whenever he introduces me, then he usually says DTM. You know, like Distinguished Toastmaster, isn't that nice? He goes and qualifies it and says, don't turn Delores. Okay. This is the guy I just finished shouting at you about. It's very helpful. I guarantee you, it's very helpful. On the reverse, once again, it's very helpful. There's all the information in the world on it to explain what these numbers are all about. These numbers range from 100 down to 1. That's how you can judge somebody. That's a whole range. However you use these, be consistent. I was sponsoring a science fair back in those years when I used to teach 8th graders. And the students were very cooperative. It was for 7th and 8th and 9th graders. We had people come in to be judges, parents. That was a good way to get the interest of our students. Other teachers from other buildings who said, I can come after school is out. And so that we had all the categories taken care of. And at the end, my cohorts and I walked through the room to see how the people fared as far as their grades were concerned. There was one thing about one project that said to all of us, simultaneously. This is great. I'm sure that this person will win, but we will see. And we have winners for each grade level. We kept on looking, and there was another project that we didn't think very much about. When it came to the grading, when we had to go through all of the grading, this one judge had given 5 points to the project that we fell in love with. And as we continued going through the forms and gathering up the numerals, the one that we just said, you know, ho hum, got a grade in the 90s. Be consistent. You cannot go around and say this person was a 5 and this person was a 93. All of that in between, it doesn't make sense. Be consistent. We did solve the problem. It was something that we wouldn't want to do, but we did solve the problem. We called in some of the science teachers who had not participated and said, please do this. We need to have a taking on these 4 projects. We have 4 instead of those 2 that included those 2. And they went around, did their judging. They all were of the conclusion that this was what needed to be, as opposed to the rest of it. And all of the grading on their judging forms were consistent. They were close, but not too close. But what we had determined turned out to be correct. Use these numbers wisely and be consistent. There's another thing that you can say about these numbers, and that is, you don't want to look at or listen to a speech and say, wonderful, absolutely, to yourself. I don't think you're going to jump up on your judge. And give this person a 93, and nobody else gets a 93. In fact, somebody else gets a 93 on your judging form. What are you going to do? You got a tie. Well, you shouldn't have to make a tie. You can't make a tie. You've got to pick a winner. But in the process, what happens to the fact that you judge 2 of the speakers at a 93? That's an easy problem to solve. You didn't want to go over 93. You really didn't want to go over 93, but these 2 people were 93s in your mind. If you feel that you're going to do something like that, you can solve the problem right away. Don't score so high that nobody else can get above what you have set in your mind as a limit to how high you're going. Do you understand that? Mm-hmm. That's not so bad. What if those 93s had been 100s? You couldn't go anyplace else if your first speaker got 100. You had 4 more people who had to speak. Are you going to give all of them 100? You can't do that. You must pick a winner. You must be consistent, and you must be careful in distributing your feelings or your objectivity so that it's inconsistent or gives you a problem. So how do you pick a winner? Your winner walks on water. In your mind, that person walks on water. So you use those numbers there to indicate that. The other speakers, one was a very good speaker, even excellent. But according to your numerals here, so far, your speaker who walks on water was still walking on water. Third speaker was good, no problem there. Fourth speaker, the water just drained out because the fourth speaker also walked on water. But you had room to put that person above your first speaker. Being consistent, don't fool around with the numbers that you have down here, use them wisely. Now, is there anything else you want to ask or any questions as far as the use of this piece of paper is concerned with? All right, Mary.
During the briefing that the chief judge gives to the judges, do you think that they ought to have people actually look at the forms, the back of the forms?
Do you think what?
During the briefing,
Yeah.
should the chief judge actually draw to the judge's attention the back of those forms?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
That should have been done earlier. She asked if during the briefing that the judge gives before the contest, should the judge indicate to the judges when they come in when they do the ballot counting? Should this be mentioned? Well, first of all, the judges are not there
No,
when you
during
have
the judge's briefing,
Okay.
not the
The
ballot.
judges have enough to take care of. Don't send them into this. But in judges' training that we have not enjoyed really very much over the last 2, 3, 4 years, this would be something that is stressed. And I'm sure that it will be discussed more in depth as far as the focus group is concerned. I don't want to step on their toes. Besides, that makes me look like I know everything.
Oh.
Anyway, I think I've said just about everything that I need to say at this point. All right? Now, rule book. Person new to Toastmasters probably wouldn't recognize what's wrong with this rule book. What's wrong with it?
All right.
It's outdated. Well, how would you tell that? Where are they going to put the corrections in the new book and let you know that this is a correction? Somebody out there knows the answer. What's the answer? I see one person who's very puzzled. So let's have an answer and then I will come forth and give you the reason why. She's really puzzled. All right, Bob's back there.
Go by the date.
Go by the date.
This is 2014.
Okay, if you have a name on that, is that what you're talking about?
The date.
The date. The date on the front. The year.
Okay, but how do you know where the corrections are? They're not in the table of contents. All right, Ed, you need to wait until I call upon you.
Thank you, ma'am. She should wait.
Okay. All right, Ed, tell us how you can
Page
determine.
3. Page 3 indicates that changes are identified by a little diamond thing.
All right, on page 3, everybody.
Page 4. Page 4.
Page 4.
Page 3.
It tells you how to find out, well, he's got it differently. On page 4, it tells you how to find the corrections or the newly revised statement.
I'll get up.
You will always find it in the left margin on each page of the rules. There will be a little diamond by that particular rule. Always in the left margin. If you find a diamond, you know there's been a rule change. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
So each
time they're gonna be a judge, do you get a new rule book?
Each time you get a new book, this is another way of determining also. You usually get the picture of the winner of the last contest. She was not the winner, but she was one. Yes, every year you will get a new rule book. And I think there was one year there were no changes. But it was the practice of International to put out a new book every year before you started working for the international contest. And most people start working on those contests in January, definitely in February, going all the way up the line. For us, it ends at district, but not for our winner who goes on to the next level. So, leaf through this. I've got a green light, but I still have some time. Leaf through this and look at some of the diamonds out to the left to see if you're satisfied and understand the changes. This is very important. One of the changes deals with the responsibility of the chief judge to notify, and I'm not talking about the chief judge in general, there should be a short session about that later on. But the responsibility of the chief judge is to see that each judge that has been chosen, and it's the responsibility of that person to get them, has been chosen, and that person has to fill out a form that designates his or her eligibility to be a judge. And you can read that in your book. Because that helps you be a judge if you read it. And then ask questions, not raise your hand right away. So that's one of the changes that was made. There are more changes in this book than I have seen over the last 2 or 3 years. The red light has gone on. You've gotten your book with all of this information in it. Now you're in for another treat, and you've got to be very careful because you'll have a job. And that job will be to pick a winner. Keep that in mind. That is the final obligation of a judge, to pick a winner. We have more time, we could go through this and go through practically every rule in the book.
All right.